All right, so this is a presentation about food as climate action. I'm going to start with my own personal story. This is my family from, I guess it was 2004, and my daughter Cleo's about 2 there, and my son's a baby. And before my husband and I decided to even have children, we talked a bit about climate change and what that would mean as far as adding to the population and their futures. But we knew about the problems, but we felt like they would be managed and that they were also farther away in the distance, like past their lifetime. But then in 2006, I watched former Vice President Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth documentary. And it was a real shocking, dramatic, eye-opening film that showed that the impacts are happening faster and more intensely than we thought. But that was in 2006, and I thought at the time, well, this is a real wake-up call, and now our governments will take action. The people will see this and take action. I had no idea how politically divisive this has been, but I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and we found out there was a problem with certain aerosols and products causing a hole in the ozone layer. And, we dealt with it. And there were policies put in place, and we stopped using certain chemicals, and, the hole didn't get larger. So I kind of assumed that would happen, I think. And also I just got busy. We were raising these kids and running a business together. We had employees. Life just got super busy. But then time passed, as it does. And this is from 2 years ago. But it just seemed like all of that time went by, but really no significant action has been taking place. In 2018, IPCC released a special report. IPCC is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, with data and research from scientists around the world. And they are telling us that we have to keep our climate, the warming, to 1.5 degrees, or we will have significant issues even at 2 degrees. So we need a path for a livable future. So just really tying into my personal life, if 12 years went by that fast, and we only had 12 years to change the arc we were on, I had to kind of go all in. And so it was actually a little bit before then, I just really started taking a lot of time to see what I could do around climate action. As I mentioned, I have these 2 kids who are now teenagers. In March 2012, I took a vegan challenge inspired by my daughter, who just loved animals and questioned some of the cruelty around it. Actually watching forks over knives and the health impact was what kind of motivated me to try a 30-day challenge, and I just kept going. My professional background is in graphic design, and so I try and take those skills when I can and apply them to climate change action, because I think we all have our own unique talents we bring to this. I've had formal training and volunteer with multiple organizations from grassroots to federal level. Eco School Network works with parents on creating green initiatives in our schools. It's local nonprofit. Climate Reality Project is Vice President Al Gore's, or former Vice President Al Gore's, his initiative to train just regular, ordinary people to have the education and awareness to catalyze change in their communities. So he does free trainings around the world, and he's doing them virtually now. That gave me a lot of background, and I'll show you some slides from that. Citizens Climate Lobby is the federal level, working on a carbon fee and dividend policy that would actually put a tax on fossil fuel industries. So I briefly tried that, going to Washington, D.C. and lobbying. Wasn't really my favorite thing to do, honestly. And then SAGE is a nonprofit here in Portland that works on creating, there's a fellowship. I joined the fellowship and you work on a project of your choosing that will help future generations. And lastly, Pachamama Alliance, which is a wonderful, environmentally just organization that brought a little bit more of a spiritual feeling into it to counterbalance some of the science and hard facts of the Climate Reality Project. So it's been a real balance of these. So just for a happy moment, we're gonna have a brief moment talking about climate change, which is always a little stressful, but I'm really gonna dwell on solutions. This is a photo of our Earth viewed from space. And this was when I was very young. I think this was from 1972. And it was really significant because we hadn't seen ourselves from this distance before. And we see how we are all connected and the beauty. There are no borders and divisions, the air and water. We're all an interconnected ecosystem. What's not shown necessarily very well here is that there's a very thin stratosphere separating us from space. That fragile shell is what keeps our climate very livable, where humans and animals can survive. And then this is my touchstone. This is a chart from NASA. It shows that our climate has changed for millennia. And as humans, we are directly contributing to a rise in our carbon levels. So starting with the Industrial Revolution, we're on this straight trajectory going up, where the main source of this is burning fossil fuels. So this will not change unless we actually take action. We're not in a good course. We're at levels that are unprecedented, so we don't really know what will happen. And the fossil fuels burning, they're affecting us. We're spewing this into that thin shell I was talking about, 152 million tons every 24 hours, as if it were an open sewer. And you know, currently our government is not, there's really no incentive for industries not to use it as an open sewer. They're not taxed on their pollution. In fact, regulations have been rolling back. Now, 19 of the 20 hottest years on records have occurred since the year 2001, which is really also tying into my feelings about my kids. Is my daughter was born in 2002, so she has always lived in one of these hottest years. And when I see all the babies being born now and all the young children, I think that the last 5 years are the hottest of all, and 2020 is on the same path. In the Climate Reality Project slides, there are many images of around the world of droughts and floods and hurricanes that are caused by more intense heat from the ocean and air. But I don't really think we need to see all that. We see it right now in our backyard with the wildfires in the Northwest. And we saw it last December in Australia, and it's happening all over the world. But this photo really is significant to me because it was taken in 2017, September, the Eagle Creek fire in the gorge. And you can see the golfers on the Washington side of the river. They're just going about life as normal, even though the earth is literally burning. And I feel like it's really shows how we're acting right now. We're just kind of moving along as if it's just fine. So that was the urgency of the issue. I'm going to talk about solutions unless anybody has anything that they want to ask right now.
There's no questions in the chat right now.
All right, I hope everyone is familiar with the term Project Drawdown. We're trying to make it very well known. It was created by Paul Hawken, or edited by Paul Hawken. It's studies and research from all these scientists and data to find out exactly what solutions we can use to bring greenhouse gases down. So they looked at all the solutions without an eye to one specific solution being more important. And some of the solutions they found were surprising. They categorized these under food, women and girls, land use, transport, building and cities, materials, and energy. And when you see these on a graph as far as their impact, I just want to point out that all of these solutions are important. We actually have to do all of them. But the food section, which is in red, reduced food waste and plant-rich diet, together are making up the largest portion of all. And when you see them in a ranking, the top two solutions are things that most people really can't have a lot of impact in their normal lives: refrigerant management and wind turbines. But I think most of us can do things around food, numbers 3 and 4. Yet when you hear about people talking about climate change, a lot of times we hear about like bring a reusable bag and, you know, get an electric vehicle. And you know, even solar, it's up there, but it's nowhere near the top solutions. But we tend not to talk as much about the food solutions. So if you look at food as, we're going to talk mostly about the plant-rich diet, and food waste is another large topic, but we don't actually need everyone to go vegan in order to reach our climate action goals. You can also choose to reduce meat and dairy for many for a variety of reasons. Some of the reasons that I kind of first became involved in were around the intensive factory farming issues. And although soil is a huge, it draws in a lot of carbon, it's very important, and regenerative farming is a carbon solution. Most of our meat and dairy are coming from these types of intensive factory farms. I would say 99%. So while we think, you know, we can do, if we do choose to buy meat and fish and dairy, can try and find the most sustainable source, but they're just really not available or affordable to most people. So in order to feed the animals, which we are, I think we eat 70, I wrote that down. Anyway, I'll say 70 million animals a year. We are using three quarters of our agricultural land to grow their food crops and to use for water and use energy. So it's all around these crops for animals to eat. And while they produce a lot of poop, actually, and the kids love this part because we have them in these houses so that they create manure lagoons in these areas where that is supposed to stay contained in that lagoon, but it does leak out and pollutes the soil, the air, and the water. And you hear about those happening. When they do get into the soil and they go out into the oceans, it creates dead zones in the water. Another reason that I really didn't want to be involved in this industry is because we know that a lot of times the animals are treated cruelly. And even though we're told that it's cage-free eggs, for example, a lot of times that means something like there's a door open that they can go out once a day. So in order to keep animals in these types of conditions, we're feeding them antibiotics as a preventative way for them to not get sick. And so I think 90% of antibiotics are given to our farmed animals, which in turn makes us more immune to antibiotics. So we're developing these resistance, and superbugs cause issues in our own health. I'm concerned about the fish because they're kind of dealing with it from all sides. The oceans are drawing in so much of our carbon, but we don't see it. So we tend to ignore what's happening down below to the coral and things like that. But the fish are having to move. The fishing industry has gotten extremely efficient at locating them, and they use large nets in order to meet the demands of our population and our meat eating, and scoop up coral and really anything that's there. So there's dolphins or sea turtles, other animals get caught up and become bycatch. So I've seen, all the reports I've seen have said if we continue on this path, there will be fishless oceans by 2048, which is just really hard to imagine. But I went to Hawaii probably like 21 years ago, and then again 5 years ago. And I could see with my own eyes a real difference that's happening. So it's happening now, and we still have a chance to do something about it, I believe. The other thing to keep in mind with fishing is, I know most of us are concerned about the amount of plastics, but almost half of the plastics in the ocean are not just our bottles and plastic items, it's discarded fishing nets, which are also trapping marine animals. And then the other concern is the more land and areas we need for farmed animals and their crops, we have to destroy tropical rainforests and areas that have trees that would bring in carbon. We are squeezing out wild animals by having so many farmed animals. So I've seen a lot of these articles. I put one on here that livestock are providing just 18% of calories, but take up to 83% of farmland. If we just shifted to more of a plant-rich diet, we could feed the entire population, I think up to 10 billion people, and we wouldn't have to destroy all of this area. And we are actually, what's happening in the Amazon and Brazil, it's connected to what we're doing in the US. Burger King, for example, it's all connected. The other thing is zoonotic diseases. We're dealing with COVID-19 when we get too close to wild animals and don't give them their space. We get these transmission of diseases. So that's another reason to try and cut back. And I think climate and social justice is such a large topic that I just want to, I'll go into it a little bit as far as local issues, but disadvantaged communities tend to get the brunt of where these animals are located. I never see them, you know, that there's ag-gag laws that prevent us from really seeing what's going on, but they locate them in areas where they can get away with it. The government is subsidizing meat and dairy so that it's cheaper to buy, frankly, like a Burger King than a salad. So on that chart for food access, meat and dairy is 63% subsidized, fruit and vegetables less than 1%. This impacts people who have the least amount of money and are perhaps have to work in places like these slaughterhouses where we have less regulations. We need people to move faster. And so people get sick and get hurt, and diseases creep in there too. And we've seen that with COVID-19, where slaughterhouses have been a point of disease transmission. So lastly, I'll just say the population in the 10 US counties rated most vulnerable to disasters by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is 81% minority on average. Everything we do as a wealthier country is having the most impact on those who have contributed least to this climate crisis. So it is a huge topic, but it's linked. All right, I'm going to take one more second. Claire, do I need to answer anything?
So no questions in chat at this moment.
Great. All right, so now I'm going to get to the happier part. What can we do about this? And there are 4 action levels. So we have the personal, family, community, and legislative. And the personal level is easier to do, but it's a smaller impact. The legislative is a huge impact, but it's really slow. So at Pachamama, we focus on the community scale. Level 3 is where you can make the most impact. So that would be your schools, businesses, if you go to a religious place to worship, any types of neighborhoods, things like that. So why take food climate action? I think it's great because everybody is making these choices every day, 3 times a day. It's something that students can do. It can be inexpensive. You can actually save money if you choose to buy more whole foods. It's a way to vote with our dollars. What kind of future do we want? What kind of products do we want to be offered? So I think of it that way when I'm choosing items to buy. And the best part is it's fun and creative and delicious. So for example, level 1 and 2, so your personal and family, this is my daughter's favorite place to eat. It's on Belmont, right? Or no, Hawthorne in 41st. Next Level Burger has tempeh, bacon, lettuce, tomato sandwich up there, a variety of veggie burgers, milkshakes made with soy and coconut. So living in Portland area is just, I know in other areas it's not as easy, but this is the best place to eat great vegan food at restaurants. This is an example of how I was taking, I do digital illustrations sometimes. So I wanted to make a chart, and I used the quote from Jonathan Safran for measure the distance, not from perfection, but from doing nothing. And I started with trying a vegan restaurant, which is something is very enjoyable. You can buy Earth Balance or vegan mayo instead of butter. Watch documentaries. I think it depends on what impacts you. I've heard a lot of great things about game changers, especially people who are interested in fitness, about athletes who have moved to a plant-based diet. I like the Forks Over Knives and Cowspiracy. You can just reduce your meat portions. Cut your normal amount in half and add more vegetables. Some people add mushrooms to beef if they're making burgers, or replace part of it with lentils. Meatless Mondays, that is the one that you can bring into businesses and schools. It makes a huge difference, amazingly. And then substituting a non-dairy milk, I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. Meat alternatives, this part is just exciting. I know you've all heard of Impossible Burger and Beyond Burger, but really the meat alternatives are just, have changed so much in the last 5 years, and they're working on even more options with seafood. So if you don't want to feel like you're missing out on meat, I would give some of these a try. Making vegan recipes. I actually like cooking at home, and I've had so much more creativity since I'm trying new ingredients and exploring, and more than kind of what I was raised to cook. Mark Bittman wrote a book, Eat Vegan Before 6, I think, or Vegan Before 6. This might be for people who like to socialize at night and don't want to, change what they were going to order, but they are fine with having their breakfast and lunch have plant-based options. You can also at home, eat more plant-based, but when you're a guest and you don't feel comfortable, you could eat what you like or vegetarian. I talked about doing a 30-day vegan challenge. I recommend, I put a link in the chat box, Colleen Patrick Goudreau. I mean, it helped me as long as, if that's something you want to try, to have sort of a framework and not just kind of go into it without any ideas or roadmap. So eat plant-based 90% of the time. You can do that. If you occasionally have meat or cheese, then that's fine too. So anything you can do is adding to this shift that we are making, we have to make, and it'll just help it move faster. On recipes where you're baking, it's really easy to just replace the eggs. The egg is just a binder. You're not actually eating it. And I usually use flax seeds with water. If it's something sweet, a banana or applesauce will work. But sometimes if I want just an egg, they've now created these just egg products that taste really good to me. And they're actually, the recipe on there is an old one, but it uses mung bean, which is a protein. So speaking of protein, a lot of people were always worried about me in the beginning that I wasn't eating enough protein, but in the US, we don't have a lot of protein deficiency issues, but we do have a lot of heart disease and diabetes and more issues around eating too much meat. So we get protein from a variety of sources. And the animals that we're eating to get protein, they're actually getting their protein from plants. So I created this chart to kind of show how there's protein in a variety of things. And most adults need around 46 grams for women to 56 grams for men of protein a day. So alternative milks, I call regular milk cow milk. It has the highest carbon footprint, emissions, land use, and water. So any other alternative milk is good. I think oat milk is probably the least impact, and I think it tastes really good in coffee and in cereal. But you could try some out, and they keep coming up with new ones. I don't have this listed, but they have one called Ripple that is pea protein, PEA. It's a little bit, it's not the best name, but just keep trying out different ones until you find one you like. But most people don't drink milk straight, and so it's a good way to kind of get some non-dairy options in. I made a meal planning chart and kind of a shopping guide, and I have the link to that in the chat box. It's to my website, and then I link to actual recipes I like. I also put a link to Minimalist Baker because her recipes are all 30 minutes or less, 10 ingredients or less, and I think 1 pot. So checks a lot of boxes for being easy, and they're delicious. If you want to just kind of ease into having more plant-based options, I think just eating cuisine that is naturally suited for that, like Indian, Thai, Ethiopian, Middle Eastern. There's so many options there, and you don't feel like you're really changing that much. Curries, easy to do with veg. So I kind of feel like if you have trouble planning it, maybe coming up with a plan around that. I did soup, stir-fried tacos, pasta. That helped me. Okay, so the last part of this is the level 3 action. So I was really talking about your personal, individual action and family. This is just my case study of what I've been working on, but you can do this in your businesses or wherever you have, wherever you are. You don't have to go to somewhere and try and implement this. Just look at what you do in your life and see if you can make some changes. I was when I was at Eco School Network, I was getting rid of single-use plastic and starting a compost, kind of a compost bin for students to use. And I had never been in the cafeteria because I was working full-time and I didn't really know what that was like. And I took this photo of the whiteboard showing kind of the meals, and you can see that all the lunches, it's like barbecue chicken and hamburgers and pizza. And I had sort of opted out all these years because I knew my kids are vegetarian. I've never asked them to be vegan. They like non-dairy options, but I don't want them sneaking out to get pepperoni. So, you know, it's their personal choice. And so I just felt like it wasn't a very healthy option. So I would make them their own lunches. But then I realized after being in the cafeteria that for the students who are taking free and reduced lunch, they're getting 2/3 of their meals through the school district. And so they don't really have this option of getting healthier food. So I thought, okay, I always thought this was a personal dietary decision, but maybe I can ask the nutrition director what it would take to get more plant-based options. Now, nutritionists don't think maybe that plant-based is the main reason, but we have a Portland Climate Action Plan goal in order for Portland to be on the right path to reduce their carbon emissions. We do have it in our plan to choose lower carbon foods. So that gave me a very strong foundation of why this would need to be implemented, not just a personal choice or even health. I'm going to go back just for a second so you can look at that chart. That beef, fish, milk, cheese, those are all at the bottom, red and orange, of having the most carbon emissions. And then even pork, poultry, fish, and eggs are all yellow, but then all the plant-based options are the lowest carbon. And it says in our in this action plan that it's actually more important what foods we're choosing than how far they have traveled to get to us, which I thought was interesting. So when we want to take action, we do need to work, I think, at our city level so that we can then expand to state and federal. So let's just, in order to bring down carbon emissions, start with our own cities and work with their objectives. I found some great partners. Friends of the Earth has a climate food policy director who would come to Portland and tell us how to change supply chains and which schools could actually have already implemented this around the nation. This does happen. Factory Farming Awareness Coalition goes to businesses, universities, correctional facilities, different organizations, and gives presentations. So if you're interested in that, I can get you in touch with them. They have a great presentation on doing Green Mondays, so just meatless once a week. I did a survey to ask, is this even supported by the community? I didn't know if it would just be my idea. And we got over 200 responses from students, parents, and teachers. Almost 60% described themselves as omnivorous, not vegan or vegetarian, but wanted more plant-based options. And the main reason for that was the environment. We thought that that would be great for the cafeterias if more students would take their lunch. We planned some meetings with the community. The one on the left is a Hollywood library, talking about kind of what I'm explaining now. We brought in a forum with the nutrition director so she could talk to us about what FDA regulations and kitchen restrictions she was dealing with. But most of the parents had opted out of the school lunch program, those with the privilege to do so, I guess. So around January, created this website called Greener World Lunches. And the goal was I wanted initially to have a plant-based option every day at school in addition to the meat option. But after spending a lot of time on this, even one day a week would be a big improvement and change. Now, the nutrition director on her own came up with this amazing meal that actually exemplifies what Greener World lunches could be. We have a diverse school population of people from Somalia and Vietnam and Russia, Mexico, all over the world. The yakisoba meal that she created started at Japanese immersion school, and you can choose it with or without chicken. So everybody can get what they want, and it's healthy, delicious, and interesting. So that is like the dream goal. And she got a lot of awards for that too. When you look at below it, that's a school menu from August, September 2019 for elementary, middle school. There was really only one day that had that plant-based option. There's some that are close. We just need to reduce the dairy, but it's misleading, I feel like, to see all those green V's, because a lot of those are things like pretzels with hummus, which are not a meal. So we were going to start with the high schools because there's only 9 of them. But by the time students are in high school, they're free to leave campus. They have other options, and they've made up their mind on school lunches. So the hope is to get this into elementary and middle schools. The exciting news is through SAGE and Climate Reality, we're working on getting middle school and high school students information about solutions to climate change and how they can think about their future. Like, what kind of jobs would there be around solar or electric vehicles? And these are all structured around our Portland Climate Action Plan. So I'm in the lower left with Rowdy from Factory Farming Awareness Coalition talking to Sunnyside Environmental 8th graders about plant-rich diet and food waste. And then they created these posters, which we were going to get mass printed and hang them in the cafeterias. But then COVID hit. So COVID-19 has meant that there are no kids in cafeteria or getting lunch, but we have the time right now to really educate people on why they might want to choose the plant-rich options and get ready for when school is back in session, and maybe work on it at home too. So I brought in these World War I posters. I changed the text on the bottom left one because I always think about, in the future, my kids asking me, like, did you know this was going to happen, and what did you do about it? And so in the past, it was kind of a deprivation, but we were able to be less wasteful and eat less meat and dairy. We ate less meat and dairy than we do now by probably half. So what used to be a deprivation is now kind of exciting and cool. We don't have to convince the young people today about the plant-based diet being difficult. It's come a long way, and you can see there's some celebrity singers, Lizzo and Billie Eilish, and Instagram influencers, and they're cool, and I think that they are showing that plant-based is the future, and that it's also fun. I took this, all these articles are from Madison High School newspaper, May 2019. These were all written by different students on their own, and they all show how food and climate are linked. So it was exciting to see they're already so much more aware of this than even their parents. In 2019, group of students made sure that the environmental policy that was supposed to be passed 3 years prior, they said, yes, we'll pass a climate resolution, but then it stalled out. The students marched into the PPS headquarters, and the new superintendent has implemented that climate resolution. And so now they do receive climate education in schools, and they have a director who is leading that. So this is all really good news, and it shows that really the students do have that power to take that on, but we all have that power within our own circles. So kind of to sum it up, I guess people need to understand the issues and care about it. What you can do is, like, wherever you are in your business or organization, ask them if they can have a Green Monday. We can have a Green Monday presentation provided to you as well. But when they're ordering out for lunch, you just need like 2 people to ask for it, just to have that offered. And normalize and encourage these plant-based options at home and socially. I have my book club friends on this presentation, and I just am so grateful that they have accepted it, because honestly, that has been the only difficult part for me as far as eating plant-based, is that it's socially awkward at times if you feel like you're putting people out. And so, that once we get over that hurdle and it's not a big deal, I think that we're going to make huge progress, because people want to feel comfortable and included. And if you go to a barbecue and you eat a salad, it's a little awkward. And then lastly, the easy and fun part too, besides cooking, is to support vegan options at restaurants and in stores. So in the link I have, if you're on Instagram, PDX Veg Challenge, all they do is post from restaurants. They're not all vegan restaurants, but they have plant-based options, and you'll get a lot of inspiration through that. Ben and Esther's is just up the street from me, and in late September, they just posted, we are now a vegetarian deli. We're just no longer offering meat, and we don't feel good about that, about having meat anymore. And so I went up there immediately and got carrot lox, vegan white fish, this chicken salad, because I wanted to show them that, thank you for offering these options. I'm going to wrap this up with another climate reality slide. So we talked about, must we change as far as where our carbon emissions are going and the global warming and the wildfires? I mean, I think we all can agree that we don't want to stay on this trajectory. And then the second question, can we change? We saw all the Project Drawdown solutions. Yes, we know what we need to do. Like, changing a few meals that we eat seems like the easiest part of it, and yet it's a huge part of making change. The last question, though, is the one that we still have to answer, and it's, will we change? And that is up to us. So I hope you'll consider this, and remember that nobody is too small to make a difference. That was